everybody, and welcome to ESO Daily. I am your host, Mr. Craven. All right. So I have people who's trying to justify the wall of elements and sacrificing other AoE effects with the upcoming changes. And what they fail to realize is compounding effects. Okay? So I'm going to get into this really quick just to kind of go over compounding effects. Because it's important, right? It really, really, really is important. It's like detrimental, actually, in a lot of scenarios. Because it adds up across the board. Because somebody said, oh, let's put Lightning Wall and Charge Trait on a healer. Not the best of ideas, considering target immunity to off balance. That's a concern, right? Because now boss will have immunity to off balance for 15 to 20 seconds with if everything goes live with the Dragon Bones. So if it stays in place, stays as is, we're going to see target immunity to off balance. So their idea is literally put a charge trait, which would increase the chance for applied effect. Can't argue that. And justify putting Inferno Staff on an AoE bar for whatever reason. I'm like, you're not going to replace an Inferno Lightning Staff. You're not. Somebody's going to be running Lightning Staff. A Lightning Staff heavy attack has the chance to apply off balance, right? Any shock ability, even the sorcerer's, effects can cause off balance. So to put it on a healer to me is just literally questionable. But we're going to go ahead. I'm on the DK now. I'm on the DK intentionally because what I decided to do was put the Maelstrom staffs side by side and on the tooltip and then show it and reflect it and show how compounding affects how you'll lose in compounding effects across the board. All right? I'm keeping it general. I'm keeping it simplistic as possible. So it's kind of important. But let's get into this. Now, they're both Nirnhuln. They both have the same enchantment. Nothing changes. This no 5-piece set whatsoever to influence anything. But here we go. Now, I'm actually going to take off the head so I don't proc the Lamberus. Now, I'm a Dark Elf. Now, keep in mind in passives, I'm going to get increased flame damage, right? High Elf gets what? Increased to lightning damage. Kind of interesting. But here we go. Okay. So right now, when we go into the skills, I'm on the Lightning Staff. Now, let's get into the passives really quick. And let me explain what the deal is. Okay. We're going to go to Ancient Knowledge. Okay. Now, this is important. Flame Staff increases what? Damage done with single target abilities by 8%, right? So for single target abilities, any ability that deals single target damage gets amplified by 8%, right? Any AoE effect is not going to get this bonus. It's only single target abilities. While Lightning Staff, right below it, increases damage done with area of effect abilities by 8%. So AoEs, lightning. Single target, flame. Now, you can do it. I'm not saying you can't. Okay? So don't get me wrong. But what you're going to lose if you decide to run AoEs all on an Inferno Staff is you lose significant DPS. Now, you could put a wall on an Inferno Staff on the backside, but you'd be losing the bonus somewhere else, so you'd have to put a utility. So, and given the fact that Sorks are going to use Liquid Lightning and anybody's going to weave up heavy, you're going to have the chance to apply the off balance anyways. So it's like, okay, All right. So, anyways, let's get into the tooltips here. All right. So, as you can see, let's take, for example, Eruption. Okay, it's an AoE effect. Now, on Lightning Staff, guess how much it does? The tooltip reads 4,758, right? If we switch to the Inferno Staff now, what? We lose 200 damage, right? So it drops. The tooltip drops.
Welcome back to my
So the tooltip is dropping. Same thing with the wall. 21 for fire. Oh, that's the same. So we're good on the walls. But look. Right here, loss. Loss. Same thing with Draw Essence. Inferno. 2-4. 2-6 on Lightning. You see how it's compounding? So I'm losing 100 and something on one ability. I'm losing an extra 200 here. Now magnify that across the board for every mag DPS. If you put AoEs on an Inferno Staff, right? So a lot of people are like, well, each one only has one. That's not the case. As a Nightblade, I use Sap Essence. That's an AoE effect, right? So if I had that on the Lightning and I put that on Inferno, what would happen? I would lose damage. Kind of important. Kind of important to understand that. Now, a lot of people were talking about this, the Engulfing Flame, because it's up to 10%. So that's the justification, right? And the DK does deal flame damage. So we're going to get, what? 10% to this ability. So by technicality, you would think the Draw Essence would deal more damage on what? The Inferno. So let's try that out. So I'm going to apply the Engulfing Flame to get the boost. We'll do a Draw Essence, and then we'll switch it over. Okay, that's 9-5 crits. Right? Now we're going to switch out. $10 on Lightning. I'm dealing 500 more damage on what? A Lightning Staff ability. And that's for every class. Same thing with Sorks with Liquid Lightning. If you put Liquid Lightning on an Inferno Staff, you'll lose DPS. Right? Matter of fact, the Sorks innate passives benefit what? Lightning damage. Because anytime you deal shock damage during finishing phase, you have a chance to do what? Implosion. So using an Inferno Staff on a Sorcerer could be very bad, especially if they're running Destro Duel. So if they're running Destro Duel, that could be detrimental for them to switch out a Lightning Staff for an Inferno. Why? Because they're going to lose the passive and they're only going to be reduced down to the class abilities and not the weapon damage effect or that wall as well. And you guys got to keep and remember, status effects apply different than damage, right? So I don't know how to really help players. That's kind of one of the things I'm struggling with in this, to get people to understand. Like, you will lose, and it's going to be across the board if you don't pay attention to these intricate details. If I have 4. Let's say, now, here's the deal. The wall is going to deal more on flame. So if I hit this, it's only dealing 27. Right? Now, if I switch it out and I hit the wall of fire, I'm dealing 31. So that is significant. But what am I losing in return? I'm losing every other AoE damage effect. Right? And that's a multiplier. So even if I gain 300, let's say, okay, 31, 19. So I get 200 and something increase. Even by 200, I'm losing that on another AoE effect. So if I have more than what? 2 AoEs, I'm screwed. I'm screwed. I'm going to lose damage. Why? Because the compounding effects. Because damage, the more damage durations I lay down, the more it compounds. So if I go ahead, hit this, I hit this, I drop my wall, I hit my my draw essence. These are all effects being applied. This is compounding, right? It's compounding effects. So one ability isn't going to justify the loss for what? Any other. Hi, Sylvia. Welcome to the stream. And that's what I'm saying. Like, and it doesn't make sense to put charged on a healer, because what does the charge trait do to the healer's healing effects? Reduces it significantly. You'd be better off with any other trait but charged. Why? Because if they're running any other heals or any other effects that would offer a heal on a back bar, guess what they do? It goes tumbling down. And you can't put, like, Nightblade. Somebody put a charge trait on Nightblade in Worm. I would never put Worm on a Nightblade healer. Why? Because its heal scales damage. You can't put a Nightblade in that type of configuration that you could get away with maybe a DK, maybe a Sorc healer, and maybe a Warden healer, and expect the Nightblade to still perform in the same essence. It doesn't work that way. Just because every class can play every role doesn't mean you build them the same. You don't do that, because you will lose in that class's capability of its functionality in that role. As a Nightblade, I'm aware that my siphons, the more damage I deal, the more I heal. But I have to be a little precarious on how I place points, because if I place too much into damage, well, then I'm not getting a better healing effect. There's a lot of options for Nightblade healers to wear for sets, but Worm would be one of those sets that would hinder the Nightblade's performance and reducing its hot capabilities significantly. While Spell Power Cure would amplify the Nightblade's heal and damage effect. So it's a win-win for the Spell Power Cure. Hey Robert, welcome to the stream. So that's the only thing I'm trying to say. I didn't really want to, like, I'm trying to be nice, but at the same time, it's like, how many times do I have to tell people? You know, how many times do I have to try to explain it where they get it? You know, it's like, okay, you're right, right? The Wall of Fire is going to deal more damage, but at what sacrifice? Compounding effects. I'm going to lose on any other AoE effect. For the Nightblade, that's 2. For the Sorc, that might be 1. But Warden, nobody's using a Mag Warden. I would. I like Mag Warden. Mystic, did you get the armor? I sent it on the Xbox. Yes, I did, Storm. Thank you so much. Dude, you are the man. Dude, thank you so much. I'm so appreciative. Thank you, man. You guys are the bomb. You guys are so badass. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. You guys show me a lot of love, and thank you. Thank you. I'm very appreciative. And I can't wait. I'm at 106 right now, champion points on Xbox, so I'm getting there. I'm going to be getting there. But yeah, I wanted to come on here and I wanted to explain compounding math. And just keep it general. You know, it's basically, you know, even though I'm a Dunmer, if I went Dark Elf, if I went High Elf, I'm getting what? Increase to what type of elemental damage? Lightning. So would the fire be beneficial to me? Even with the 2% increase? No. Because I'm losing that at that point now. The 2% means nothing to me as a High Elf. Because I lose what? The passive. So that's significant. That's what I'm saying. Compounding math would dictate you cannot run the same configuration on every class. You would lose. And that's what I keep trying to explain to people. It's like, oh my God. It's like, it's right here. I'm just doing it in a general sense, right? I know 8% towards single, 8% towards lightning. But I'm a Dunmer. That rule shouldn't apply, right? You know, you would think because of my extra increase to flame damage by 7% that the flame staff would still be superior with AoE effects. But it's not. Only for the wall. Anything else, I lose. Okay. Okay, I'm going to look up NSFW. 5-8 on an Inferno. 6-1 base on Lightning. 5-8. You see what I'm saying? You lose. Is it something? Is it something? Did you need a resto or no? I don't know yet. I have to take a look. Mystic, if it's anything I've learned is repetitiveness sinks in. It's frustrating as hell, but yeah, repetitiveness, right? And it is. I get frustrated. I mean, I really do, because some of the known content creators, they're just throwing shit out there now. They're like, okay, well, we'll just put this on every healer, put it out, tag it with the name, and put their healing abilities. I'm like, no, that doesn't work that way. If you played that class in that role, there are a lot of options. Like DK. DK has a lot of options, but not as much as the Templar. The Templar has one set of options. Sure, you can put Worm on a DK, and you can put Spell Power Cure on a DK. Is it going to be as effective as it is on a Templar? No. Plain and simple. You put now if you put a DK in heavy armor with Spell Power Cure. So let's say David, one of my subs, he uses Torox Pack, right? A 5-piece set of that and with Spell Power Cure. He's going to reap the benefits. Why? Because he's crafted it in heavy, right? It increases what? His health. By doing so, his shielding system scales higher. So he mitigates more up front and he offsets the healing. And that's how the DK works. So it's like the DK functions different in its role than a Templar, right? Same thing with the Nightblade. The Nightblade has to deal damage. When it deals damage, the heals scale off that. So you can't put a secondary set on a Nightblade and expect the same effect. Same thing with Warden. Warden is way more effective with Twilight's Remedy than any other class because it offers synergies, you know, in its ground heal. You can do that with the Templar too, actually. I do recant that. So the Templar and the Warden benefit from that set a lot better. Where the DK, Nightblade, and Sork struggle because they have limited. Actually, in the Sork, you could put Liquid Lightning and offer that synergy as well. So there are ways around things. But you really have to be a little precarious. And there's no wrong way to do things. You just have to understand how that class functions in that role. And that's what I'm always telling people. There was no BIS because why? Every class is going to yield different results based off of its innate passives. So, and the compounding effects, this is what I used to do. I love this type of math. I used to love going to work and working with compound interest and understanding inflation and understanding all of these different aspects to percentage math. And when somebody comes in and is like, oh, and just slaps something on, you know, whatever, and says, put a charge trait on a healer, well, now they're losing what? They're losing healing capability for the charge trait. That's why I run a Sork with the charge. If I go Destro on a Sork, I'll run one, what, with Nirnholm, the other one with charged. Why? Because I'm increasing the chance to apply status effect. I don't want another class sacrificing anything other than. Same thing with the DK. DK here can run charge, especially with Burning Spell Weave. For what reason? To get a faster applied effect with the Burning Status effect. So if I wanted to replace my Infused with charge, that increases my uptime for what? The Burning Status effect. So that's how that works. I mean, once again, I don't know how to keep telling people. And I'm like, if you put AoEs on Inferno Staff across the board in your trial, they're going to lose. Let's say Nightblade loses 600 across the board. The Sork loses 400. And another person loses another 200. You see where I'm going with that? All of a sudden, there's 1,100 out for each rotation, for each applied effect. That's significant. Remember, they haven't done a lot of non-meta, so they probably need time to learn a lot of the different options. They're used to one thing and one thing only. And I agree with that. But slapping builds out there is going to get players, you know, it's going to look bad on players because they don't understand it. And I take that kind of with pride because, you know, I play every healing class. You know me, guys. I feel like there's flexibility in this game. A lot of it, actually. Tons of it. And I don't think there's one wrong way to go. But you can't slap one thing on every class and say, okay, there you have it. Use Mending if this applies. Use that if that applies. No. You know? There's a lot like War Maiden. I could put War Maiden. I can use Julianos on a Nightblade healer. I can use War Maiden on a Nightblade healer. Why? Because it deals magic damage. The more damage it deals, guess what? It heals higher. So if I put War Maiden on the back end with Spell Power Cure, what happens to the Nightblade's healing effects? It goes up considerably, right? But I lose crit. So I only have one crit on War Maiden, and Spell Power Cure doesn't, so I have to pick up the Thief, which I usually grab Thief anyways. But if I'm using Julianos, I might not need as much crit, depending on my layout. So then I might go ahead and take the Apprentice. So there's an offsetted value there. So both become applicable. It's just in the execution. If I put Worm, sure, I reduce everybody's cost. That's sacrificing what? My healing effects. So it's like, how do you do that? You know, I think there's like a lot of options. There's no doubt in my mind about that. The game has capability, but don't put every class in one set of gear and say, this is how you do it. And that's the wrong way to do it. It's the wrong approach. You're better off trying to do something a little different, like sustain. I put this build together today for the DK. Why? Because it has sustain issues. But any class can use it. Any class can use Burning Spell Weave and Lich. Will it be as effective on any other class? No. Because the DK has more what? Flame damage. So it has a higher chance to apply what? The Burning Status effect. When it does, it gets an amplification. So putting Burning Spell Weave on a Sorcerer makes no sense comparable to the DK. And that's the only thing I'm pointing out. So you can do a lot of things, and you have a lot of options, but just keep in mind the effects of what you'll lose if you do so. And that's the only thing I'm asking people. Do whatever you want to do. Play how you want to play, by all means. But just be aware, you know, each class is going to perform slightly different based on passives. So if I wanted to make a Fire Sork, I could, but, you know, what abilities do I have to slot to get the most out of the effect? Did you see Outcast Nightblade Healer with Worm Cult Mystic? I did. I heard you mention yesterday or the day before how that combo doesn't work very well. It doesn't. Worm Cult on a Nightblade is like the worst thing you can put on a Nightblade healer. Spell Power Cure, yes. You would never want to put Worm on a Nightblade. Ever. You lose healing. I live and die by Nightblade Healer. I've done a lot of different configurations with Nightblade Healer. War Maidens is really good. Julianos is really good. But you have to have a damaging set. You have to have, because the Nightblade's siphon abilities, its heals scale from damage. But you can't overload it because then the healing effect decreases. So you kind of have to place both into the CP system and evenly kind of offset the difference just a little bit just to get the most out of the Nightblade healing. But, and there's a lot of options for Nightblade Healer. Yeah, I mean, you can't put different sets on. So it is, but putting Worm, you lose. So that's a set you want to steer away from. So if I had two healers, say I'm using a Nightblade Healer in a trial, I want to make sure the other healer's running Worm. Whether I can put Worm on a DK, and that would be, you know, that'd be more acceptable on a DK even. I'd lose a little bit more on DK versus like something like Sanctuary. Sanctuary, or even like we said, my one sub David, he runs Torox Pack Heavy because his mitigation scale's higher. And he's able to offset the mitigation through his healings. Now he's having a shield system throughout his rotation and applying the buffs and decreasing damage so significantly that he needs very little healing, and it works. So the DK has you know, strong suits in one area, where Nightblade has strong suits in another. Templars have strong suits in one aspect, and Wardens have strong suits, and so does Sorcerers. So every healer, you have to like Worm on a Sork is so doable. Like you could literally put the Sorcerer almost in every configuration that the Templar runs, but significantly, if you use Mending on the Sorcerer healer, you're going to get a little bit more from the Sork healer because of the minor Mending. Because the Sork doesn't have minor or major applied in its passives. So if you apply minor Mending with the the healing set, the mendings or the healer's habit set, all of a sudden, boom, the Sorc healer just takes off, like boom. Same thing with the necropotents. If you put necropotents on a warden or a Sorc healer because they have pets, all of a sudden, bam, it amplifies their healing. But they have to offer something like an utility. So you always kind of want to, you know, communicate between your peers. Jonathan Bird, I used to hear a lot of mag DKs using Silk of the Sun, but never hear it spoke about anymore. You know the reason why it isn't used anymore, Mystic? Silk of the Sun is still really good, actually, Jonathan. The only thing about Silk of the Sun is you have to keep it static. Burning Spellweave, the only reason, and this is kind of what I wanted to show with this build today. So, for example, with this build, the Burning Spellweave will carry over on both aspects, even if I switch. So I don't have to keep burning a static Burning Spellweave, right? So if I go to the Lightning Staff here, right, you'll see this is my Lich 5-piece, but not my Burning Spellweave. So when I go over here and I apply the Burning Status effect, and I get it to proc, if I can, okay. Now I switch over, and look, it carries over. Spell damage 1762. But it carries over. And that's one thing Silk of the Sun doesn't do. Silk of the Sun has to stay static. So it's still a really, really great set. I mean, the damage is great on it for DK. But the problem of it is it has to stay static, or Burning Spellweave doesn't. But there's a 4-second lapse. So Silk of the Sun, I would always still recommend it. I don't think it's a bad set at all. I feel like it's still a strong set for DK. Are you going to update videos for your healers for Dungeon Bones? Or are the only minuscule changes that the old videos are fine? Actually, I'm hoping to update the DK healer because of the new set. That new set really benefits the DK healer. The problem with the new set is the one thing is whether or not if you keep Spell Power Cure, you're going to sacrifice a little bit for the buffs. So it's the debate. I really want it, though. I want that new set. And everything else is kind of minuscule, like you mentioned, it is. But once again, the CP points are a reflection, so I probably will do updates just based on CP alone. So I will probably be doing update on my healers based on that alone, because the CP allegation is kind of a reflection of, you know, keeping everything updated for the people who are going to be using those builds. And once again, I'm not going to rag on anybody's build and say that you can't do that. You're just not going to reap the benefits from it. Putting Worm on a Nightblade, I would put Worm on any other healer but my Nightblade. I know what it would do to my Nightblade. It would rip his heals to shreds. It would decimate his heals significantly. And it's not really good. So I live and die by Nightblade. You guys know me. If you guys watch me, I live and breathe Nightblade healer. I live and breathe that healing class. And I've tried using other configs, but up until one Tamriel, I couldn't justify Spell Power Cure. But after one Tamriel, I could, which was a boon for me. But after that, I tried so many configurations. I got War Maidens to work. I got Julianas to work. I got there was another set I got to work with Nightblade Healer, though I found it a little kind of subpar. But and also yeah, there was another. Like I said, there's like 2 or 3 different sets that really pair well with Nightblade Healing. So it was like, oh, okay, that's really cool. You know, and also like Twiceborn Star. Believe it or not, it does less than Julianos healing wise, but it was flexible as far as like configurations. If I wanted to switch out a configuration, so some kid did have a Twiceborn Star build with it, and I thought it was kind of cool. I mean, it was a little less than mine. But at the same time, his implication, because he was like, if you want to go from heal to this, Twiceborn Star has that flexibility. And I was like, dude, that's actually a pretty kick-ass idea, kid. Because you're aware that Twiceborn Star isn't going to be maximized, but its flexibility allows this application to be switched. And I thought that was ingenious. I really gave it up to that little tuber, man. He really made me smile that day because he thought outside the box, and he's like, you know, you can go this way and that way with the Nightblade, with the healing and the DPS. I was like, Good shit, kid. I was like, good shit. What's up, Mustang? It was good shit. And I appreciate that, man. I really do, because it was like that, you know, he thought outside the box, but he knew what, like, the application for what he's trying to deliver was, it was brilliant, actually. It was brilliant. And that's, to me, is the reflection of this game. There are a lot of capabilities, a lot of things I haven't even thought of yet. I'm still coming up with stuff. So I'm not going to dismiss anybody's build, and I'm not going to trash anybody's build. I'm just saying, if you put every healer of every class in the same gear, you're going to have negative results. You're going to have one of those classes be an epic fail because you anticipated. What did you miss? Oh, we were just conversating about compounding effects and how you know, that's like putting AoE effects on an Inferno staff is a bad thing. Even with the changes to Wall, which Wall would amplify, but every other AoE effect would trickle down and be magnified, would be a tremendous loss detrimentally across the board. And that's why I'm trying to say, like, whoever's going to say replace Lightning with Inferno, bad. It's not even a joke. It's like, that's a bad decision. That's just terrible. It's a terrible decision because they didn't take a look at compounding math. And then we were talking about the healers, because that's what I do. That's what I'm known for in this game. I can come out with a billion DPS builds. My DPS builds do not get looked at as much as healer builds. I am like the #1 most researched tuber for healer builds in this game currently, because I cover every one of them. I'm not trying to float my boat. It's fact. And I'm like, because I know every one of them. I'm not saying they're the best. I just know the class. I know how it functions in that role. So I'm aware that you can do this, but you're going to have some ill results if you try to copy up one build and apply it to another healer. You're going to have a lot of bad results. A lot of flexibility. Like I said, I put Worm on any other healer but Nightblade. A lot want to see Wizards Reposit nerfed. Oh, yeah. Do you agree? Because I've seen a lot of players complaining about it for PvP. You know, I think it's a specific type of game style. It hits hard. But I don't feel like it needs nerf. Because you sacrifice... To me, I feel like you sacrifice for having the set. So the set itself should be the boon. That's my personal opinion. My personal opinion is like, yeah, okay, well, I get this effect from the set. But what am I getting on top of that? I lose in every other aspect. So I'm banking on the set at that point. It's like, that's a hard thing. Like, I don't think Wizards Reposit needs nerfed. I mean, it's a battleground set, and in my opinion, it's good, but I know what I'm losing by using it. I have to bank more on the set. I have to. Like, I remember Transmutation. You guys remember when Transmutation came out and it was only 2 seconds? Remember that? We were all like, this is junk. Like, nobody was touching it. Like, nobody was touching it. They amplified Transmutation. Now Transmutation is no joke on a healer. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, you know, things always have to be adjusted. I think gear always is going to have to be adjusted. But honestly, Wizards Reposit to me is like, okay, I get it. I get why people are complaining about it. But at the same time, what does the player give up for using the set? That's the only thing I'm asking. You know, even if they nerf it, no one's going to use it then. Because why? Because there's no benefit to it at all at that point. That's my point. That's my opinion. So, whatever. You know, people are going to complain all the time. That's what changes things. So, but yeah, compounding effects, man. I don't know what to tell people, man. And I do get frustrated. I do get mad. I do get really upset when I'm trying to explain something. I disagree with somebody, and I say it, right? All of a sudden, people hate me for it. People hate me for it. But I'm like, I've been doing this for 21 years. You guys think I'm making that up? It's like, I know what's going to happen. That's why I said I know the math. I see it. I don't even have to think about it. It's like, okay, and have I been wrong? Yeah, I'm human. We're all wrong. I have no problem with that. You know, fractions. I'm terrible at fractions. You guys want to know something? Truth is, I'm good with percentage math, really good with like money and calculations and percentage math. I suck at fractions. And fractions, the decimals, is even worse for me. That's the type of math I suffer in. Is fractions. Fractions of this and, you know, whatever. And I'm like, because when I took algebra 2, we were getting into you know, all these equations with fractions, and that's where I started struggling, because x factor was over a 7 in a fraction of, you know, the whole, and then, you know, by the decimal, and I'm like, oh fuck, and I got really bad. Sherman, what's up, dude? Welcome to the stream, man. Hey, I saw your video today, dude. It looks so good. Dude, I'm anticipating your test results. So, guys, Sherman's testing some stuff. He's going to get a hold of us and let us know what's going on. So, anticipate that, guys. I'm really looking forward to seeing, Sherman's test results coming up. When I saw that announcement, I was like, whoa, man. I was like all giddy. I felt like a kid, you know, in front of a TV, like waiting for, the commercial to end just so you could get the results. So I felt like, wow, okay. I like to learn stuff. That's cool. So I'm really excited, Sherman. That was pretty cool. I saw that bid today. That was pretty badass. Looking forward to it. Hope everything's going good. So Sherman, I don't know if you've been watching the stream, but I don't know if you've ever heard, but a couple of, I guess, people are saying that they're going to replace Lightning Staff with Inferno. Any thoughts on that, man? From your perspective? I won't read it. I just want to, I'll read it, in here. I just think it's terrible. Sure, you'll gain in one aspect, but you'll lose in every other across the board. Compounding math. It's compounding. You would think, like I said, you would think, Draw Essence, it's an AoE effect, that it would deal more. But it doesn't. It just doesn't. 4-8. Like I said, 7, 8 on a crit there, and over 8 crit here. My God, look at that! Look at this! Was that the same? Hold on, that might have been the same. Oh, because I have a different set on. I'm like, wait a minute. How did that happen? Because I forgot to switch these out again. I didn't do too much testing, and it's in the video, but have a lot of testing to do. Right. It never ends for us, man. Never ends for us. We're always working. Love some of the new build, Sherman. Yeah, I'm like, I haven't got to check out a lot. I don't get to watch a lot of people's content. I try to catch here and there what I can. But like I said, when I saw this video on some of the testing stuff, I was like, oh man, that's going to be badass. So, but yeah, tooltips are always going to be a reflection of max too, guys. Now think about that too. You'll always, multipliers are not included in reconfiguring of tooltip as a after effect. But the base value of tooltip remains maximum potential without any amplifications. If that makes sense. So, like for example, without any applied effects to increase the tooltip, let's put it that way. I'll say it that way. Let me make sure I have this switched out too. Lightning and Inferno. Okay. So, for example, my Draw Essence rates 2, 3, 5, 6 on a Lightning. Draw Essence over here, 2, 2. Right? So you see the difference. The amplification from Engulfing Flames would be 10% towards Flame, but the 8% towards what? The Lightning would be applied effect. Keep in mind, racial passives will influence that as well. Hence why High Elves will still benefit more from what? Lightning Staff. Yeah, there's talk. I've been testing the idea, but it's more to do with the CP placements right now and things like light, heavy attack to do with changes to off balance. Right. That's the one thing like I've kind of been playing with a little bit, but the one thing I just we can't I find like we don't get enough information from the target dummy. You almost have to put yourself in the dungeon scenarios to get more of an accurate feedback. Because it's like, and then throw up the metrics and the system and say, okay, what are we looking at here? And then sometimes things seem a little whacked in that situation because it's harder to isolate. Why? Because we're getting all these effects that's, you know, from one dungeon to another to test. So we literally have to put ourselves like in a world boss or something and say, okay, here's this with these effects, here's that with this effect. So, oh my gosh, it's just crazy. Tooltip starts at base, grows based on max stats, but more from the weapon and spell, right? So, oh, well, you know, given the you know, the scaling system too, that's one thing I wish they changed too. Like, you know, I feel like if they addressed the scaling system a little better, we could see more hybrid builds, honestly. Like for example, daggers. Daggers was a big example that me and my dudes were talking about. Like why people are having a hard time with hybrid builds, right? And this kind of was like a really good point for this. I was like, yo, man, that's like an excellent thing here. Like I really liked the way they came across with that, and we explained it with daggers, believe it or not. And we were like, oh, dude, seriously? And we were like, yeah, the daggers. And it was like, oh, yeah, that's badass. So, for example, when you go in, and let me unlock this. We'll talk about this for just a second. Okay. So, I'm going to unlock Twin Blade and Blunt. But listen, Axe gives chance to bleed, but physical damage. So guess what? If I scale more into what? My Mighty, that's going to scale. It's not going to scale off of what? My Magicka. And then I have to have what? Physical pen, not spell pen. So penetration, unless you use the lever, because the lever covers both, you're fucked. Okay? Mace, physical resistance. But Destro Staff, ability based on Destro Staff ability. But you get light armor passive for penetration. So that's kind of like, oh, it's covered. But look at the dagger. This was the biggest one. Increase weapon critical. We're like, why can't dagger? Because swords apply to, guess what? Magicka and physical damage. Swords will cover both. Right? Why can't daggers cover both spell and weapon critical? Why is it limited to just weapon critical? Why can't I increase my spell critical from daggers, for example? And that's what we're talking about. We're like, you know, if they would apply that type of effect, you know, that would be huge. You know? The target skellies are good to test on, but you do not get the correct readings right. Because of the bonuses from other members and the boss encounters having different effects on your DPS. Right, exactly. It's like you're kind of like, and if you group up with anybody different and their time in the application's messed up, it skews everything, man. It's like you have to almost take the information, apply the math yourself, do some here, do some there, and come up with the calculations yourself. It's like, it's a never-ending process. It's like, you know, I have some advantages. I'm sure you do too, Sherman, because we can kind of minimize the time needed, but at the same time, we still have to go through those steps to, you know, cover our tracks. You know, it's rechecking our work. It's what it is. And it's like, oh, shit, you know, it just doesn't stop. But, like, this is what I'm saying. Swords will cover both Magicka and physical. But why can't daggers cover the spell crit? Why? That would give benefit to what? Hybridization. Now, this is my another point. Like, the CP system goes against hybrid building because it's too separated. So when I go into the CP system, it's like, we don't want you to make a hybrid build. We have hybrid sets, but there's no way you're ever going to want to do a hybrid build. Why? Because the passives for spell effects align in the Apprentice, right? Look, critical strikes with magic abilities. Come over here to precise strikes. Critical strikes with stamina abilities. So I'm never going to be able to scale a hybrid build to the maximum potential of an isolated build, whether it be Magicka or Stamina. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the sub. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. But, yeah, you know, that's what I'm like. If they would cover this and, like, isolate it to the point where, okay, well, it's just going to cover critical strikes. Not based on Stamina, not based on Magicka, but period. Now you can apply hybrid builds more efficiently. And the same thing with the stamina scaling in the Magicka. If I go with more stamina-based abilities, right, a portion of my Magicka should scale the difference. That would go ahead and allow me to run hybrid builds a lot better. But unfortunately, it doesn't. And because of that, we're constrained, we're restricted. And that's what I'm saying. Like, there's potential for hybrid builds. The problem of it is they need to address what? The scaling. And by doing so, they have to reconfigure this type of scenario. They've got it too separated. They've got stamina to the right, and they got Magicka to the left. And by putting them on two separate sides of the streets, they're never going to be cohesive unless what? You're a tank. Tanks are got more cohesive applications towards hybridization. But DPS doesn't. And that's the problem. And I really wish they would address this, because I would love to make hybrid builds. I would enjoy making hybrid builds. But I'm already aware of the scaling system difference. And unfortunately, until they can isolate that and, you know, come to some conclusion to say, you know what, critical applies to this, period. You know, scaling is going to be maximum this, but you're going to offset that. You can offset the difference of this, because same thing. Would I take Meteor on a stand build? No, because I'm not going to put in an Elemental Expert. Now, I would put a couple points if I'm a Stam Sorc to get that nice bonus to maybe something like my monster set, but not enough to justify losing the DPS up front in my physical. That's ludicrous. So it's like, oh my gosh, you know, because now I have to worry about what? Spell Pen. The lever will cover both distances, so will Sharpen Trait. That's not a problem. The problem of it is, how much penetration do I need for each effect? On top of my max Magicka versus max Stamina. And spell damage and weapon damage. And critical values. Left, right, so on and so forth. It's just mixed matched. Ugh, drives me nuts. But yeah, Sherman, hey, after this goes live, get a hold of me, because I'm definitely in on that co-op. A lot of my viewers are looking forward to it. You're going to host it, though. I'm just going to sit by and, you know, let you do the thing, and this way I don't accidentally say anything bad. And I can just agree. Maybe we can get gameplay and we can work out the details. But a lot of people are looking forward to it, Sherman. I'm looking forward to it as well. Looking really forward to that co-op, man. That collab. That's going to be awesome. It's going to be badass. I mean, it's going to be, you know, sorry. you get me, Sherman. You know what I'm doing. So, but yeah. Once again, guys, compounding math, just pay attention. That's all I'm asking. It's relative. And I'm not trying to dog the other YouTubers. I just want people to be aware. You will lose if you're not aware.
I have $5. Hold on.
Anyways, I'm going to let you guys go. If you have any questions or comments, please post below. I want to thank everybody for watching. Once again, thank you for everybody for stopping in. I appreciate it. Thank you for subscribing. This is Mr. Craven, the SCSO Daily. And once again and always, have a nice day.